Growing up, the tallest, fattest, shortest, and thinnest among us were laughed at for what they naturally were. In class, those who struggled with mathematics or English were called dumb or lazy. And don't get me started on the sports field. Differences were not welcome, and in time, our little minds noticed this. And because we didn't want to be excluded or bullied, we learned how to be more like others, how to minimize our differences, how to conform in order to be accepted. And today, we all grown up paying bills, building families, buying cars, creating careers, and still, that yearning to be accepted lingers on. Deep down, we still try to be more like others, to minimize our differences, and to conform in order to be accepted. But can you imagine what the New Testament would have been like if the fierce Apostle Paul would have tried to conform to be more like the gentle Apostle John? Imagine the unique storytelling and lessons we would have been deprived of. Imagine the unique leadership the early church would have missed out on. Although both John and Peter were among Jesus' 3 closest disciples, they were unique in their personalities, in their journeys, in their Bible books that they even wrote. You and I may both be followers and believers of Jesus Christ, but our personalities, our journeys, and the things that we're going to do on this earth for Jesus Christ are unique to each of us, right? Some people who are quick-tempered, loud, and naturally violent can find hope that they too can be believers and followers and even servants of Jesus Christ when they see what Jesus Christ did in and through the quick-tempered, loud, and violent Apostle Peter, right? And those who are shy and quiet and more on the meek side can be encouraged that they don't need the boldness to cut off people's ears in order to be servants of Jesus Christ when they look at the Apostle John. John never walked on water, but he had the opportunity to write the book of Revelation. Peter didn't recline at the bosom of Jesus, but he was the rock on which Jesus built his church. So stop looking at how you are not used by Jesus to write a book or start a podcast for him, and appreciate how he is using you to build a solid faith foundation in the lives of the little one, his little ones in Sunday school. Stop looking down at the opportunity he has given you to feed that one man at the traffic light simply because you are seeing someone else feed an entire school. We are different, and different is good. Our differences allow us to be the unique vessels that God Almighty pours His blessings through to His people. Stop looking at other vessels and start perfecting the vessel that you are. As different vessels, we all make mistakes and have challenges along our paths, and this should not discourage us from continuing to allow God Almighty to pour into us and through us to other people. May this video remind you that although he was the rock on which Jesus Christ would build his church, Peter made mistakes and he had character flaws. But God Almighty had a plan to use all those flaws and all those faults for his glory. And he's not shocked by your flaws and your faults. If you allow him, he will use them to bring glory to himself. But please stop adding to your weight by bringing into your basket the flaws and the mistakes that were never yours to begin with. I think we find ourselves in this position. We find ourselves, trying to be like other people. And the more we try to be like other people is the more we take on other mistakes that we would have never made. We end up creating flaws in our personalities that we would have never had as being part of us had we just remained true to the vessels that we have initially been created to be by God Almighty. Let's think about this. A tortoise is able to carry its shell, an elephant its trunk, right? But if a tortoise were to try to carry an elephant's trunk, where would it put it? it would serve as a burden to the tortoise. Are you not a tortoise trying? Am I even saying this tortoise? It sounds funny. Tortoise. Anyway, are you not a tortoise trying to be like an elephant because you find yourself in the midst of elephants and have since decided to copy them, to be like them, to minimize your shell and take on their trunks? Be honest with yourself, you know? An elephant doesn't necessarily, I'm not here saying like you small and someone is big, but like sometimes we are a certain way. We are a certain, not sometimes, all of us, all the time. We are unique, we are different, we are special. Just as a tortoise is very different from an elephant, but we find ourselves in the midst of people of certain personalities. You know, sometimes we are like Apostle John, finding ourselves in the presence of a lot of people that are like Apostle Peter. And because we don't want to be bullied or to be looked down on or to be different, we try to be more like Peter, or we try to be more like John, thus losing our uniqueness. You can pretend as much as you can, but when you look honestly, you will admit that the trunk is too heavy. My encouragement to you is let go of the trunk. Put on your shell. Even if as a tortoise you're much smaller and slower than an elephant, you are doing yourself and quite frankly society a disservice by not being the tortoise that God Almighty created you to be. Please, please, please stop trying to be a better animal and start being the different animal you were created to be. Stop trying to be a better elephant and try being the best tortoise you were meant to be. Thank you so much for being here. Take time to read or listen to the books of Apostle Peter and Apostle John and enjoy their unique writing styles. Their different viewpoints of the things of God. I've been listening to First Peter, Second Peter, and I actually realized that these are books that, you know, you don't hear a lot on. Like there were like a couple of verses that I'm like, yeah, I've heard this one, I've heard this one, I've heard this one, but the rest of the book is filled with wonderful lessons and instructions that even in church for some reason we don't even hear about. Even when you on your I use a YouVersion app, I rarely get verses from these. So I encourage you to take the time, listen to it if you like me liking to listen, or read it, you know, and learn from what God Almighty wants to do. I sincerely hope that you've been encouraged by watching this video. Leave a comment on what really stood out for you, on what you are taking away from this. And subscribe if you haven't, please. And I will see you on the next one. Till then, bye for now.